Alright guys, welcome back to part 2 for Kung Fu for Artists. Now, if we go back over my sketch box from last time, we did a lot of different things. So, we're going to go zooming through all these. This should look kind of familiar, minus all the extra marks. This was the pen from the sketch box. I love that pen. So we were working on all kinds of different shading. We used this pencil, look in for part 1 in the description, and we were working on value scales and the whip outs. Okay, so guess what? Miss Stubby, what? That's all fine, but that's really scratchy. What happens if I don't want to draw hair? What happens if I want to draw really smooth stuff? Well, we have an exercise for that too. So grab some pencils, grab some paper. It doesn't have to be great paper, just any kind of paper. And draw some boxes like so. Okay. Now, what we're going to do today is we are going to do, we're going to start working on some smoothness of the blends. So we are going to take this stuff right here, okay, and then we're going to apply it to here. And then we're going to use 3 different ways that you can do blending. So let's work on our exercises. From dark to light. From light, oops, a little too light, and then from dark. Vincent wants to break today. And now we're gonna go light. Until dark. And then from dark into light. Not bad. Tell my hands are cold from it being so freaking cold in Iowa. I am so beyond sick of winter. Alright, so now we're going to do this over here again. I'm going to go light. I'm going to keep doing this until we get to super dark. So what we're going to be doing here is we're just going to test out different ways to blend, okay, while still practicing our artist kung fu. I had a lot of people tell me they like this concept, so I'm going to make a series of it. Voila! Alright, now we're going to do it one more time once I warm up my hands. And then we're going to show you the 3 ways you can do some blending. Well, there's 4, but that's okay. We're going to go light here this time. And push down, more pressure, more pressure, more pressure, more pressure, more pressure, more pressure. So it's nice and dark. And then dark. Lighter, lighter, less pressure, less pressure, less pressure. Till it just fades out. Less pressure, a little bit more, a little bit more. Alright, so this is what we did basically last time. Now, you can blend with your finger, which is fine, but there's pros and cons to that. You will always have blending capabilities, but the oils from your hands will cause it to have some issues. So, here's this spot here. I'm going to really zoom in so you can see it. So I blend it here, right? The problem is when you do that, you don't always get a clean erase mark. So here I'll erase this. Okay, see how it's just slightly more cleaner than this area? Because my oils mixed in with the carbon of the pencil, and it just basically made a very thin paint. So we don't want to, it's okay if you want to do that, that's fine. That's one technique. You might want to kind of have that type of blending, but for the most part, there's other things you can do. Now, you can blend in a few ways. You can go and buy these blendy sticks things here, alright? See, my camera will, there we go. So these are pretty cool. They're fairly cheap. You can get one where it looks kind of like this, and then you can get ones that are like this, and they can get really big, really thin, and these are really cool. So these will be on this little side. Then you can also use Q-tips. These guys, never ever really, you should be using them in your ears according to the doctors, and the reason why is because you can actually shove the wax back deeper into your ear and cause more damage. So leave the dragging out of the wax to your body or to your doctor. Then the next thing you can use is tissue paper. So this is what we're going to be waxing. What we'll be working on when we work on our blending. So the first one, we will use this one. And we'll go from light. And I recommend doing circles. You can do it this way. But since this is Kung Fu, our drills is to help us learn our techniques, so that way we can break the techniques and use them for other things. So there's this one, and we'll go with this one. I am going to go light first. We'll see which one blends the scratchiness out of the best. So here's this one. Remember, we go light. We'll see which one works. In this case, we might have to go from dark to light. Now I'm doing circle motions, okay, because it seems to blend better. Like that. And now for our tissue. Now some people like to take their tissue and have their finger become the rubbing. Okay, so I'll show you this way. So I'm just taking this and I'm rubbing it with my finger. Okay. The other way is you actually create one of your own blending stumps. So you're going to fold it until it's about like that, and then you're going to kind of beginnings of making an paper airplane, and you just keep rolling it until you get a little triangle that's like, oh, use me for blending. Okay, I'll use you for blending. And then we'll start over here. Okay. Now, so tissue, Q-tips, and professional blending sticks. Now, let's look at these very closely. And we're going to notice that all of them get rid of these scratchy issues. They blend it. We see how it smooths out. We see how I think the Q-tip did the worst job for the blending because you can really see the scratchies. This really softened up. This would be like, this reminds me it would be really good for misting, for little scenes. So it looks really cool. And then your professional blending stick kind of had the mixture of both. So with that, so Stubby, how can we use our artist Kung Fu to sit there and really really make things smooth. So when we go back to our beginning right here, these scratchy marks, this is where that pressure, your first lesson, lesson number 1, is so vitally important. So I am going to come here. So remember when we were going really light? Okay, we need to maintain that. So that pressure is vital to making very smooth. I'm gonna really try to push this through. Okay. I am barely touching my hand. You see how it just kind of glides over my hand? That's basic. That's the same pressure that I'm using on the paper. I'm just gliding. Like a hand glider that goes through the air. Okay. So this is where these Kung Fu exercises come in. Just like in Kung Fu, we have 2-man drills, we have conditioning, we have our forms, and we practice, right? Because in order to become a master, you must do the thing a lot. So now we're going to take just this layer, okay, and I'm going to use the clean side of this, and I'm just going to gently rub. Now you can start to see towards this end where I wasn't properly fully being very light with my pencil, and you can see more of the scratches versus here where it's super nice and smooth. Okay? That's why having that pressure and teaching your muscles proper pressure techniques is vital for good drawing. So we got the first layer. Now maybe we want this side just a little bit darker. So we're going to do that again. Just go gently over it. Just glide. Now some people like to do circles. So this is something I've seen people do to help make it more smooth. So I'm going to go over here and I'll show you the circles. So teeny tiny little baby circles. You're still gliding on the paper. You are not pushing down into the paper. You're gliding over the paper because all paper has some form of texture to it, no matter how smooth it is. And you want to be gentle. So see how that's nice and smooth? You can actually see the grains of the paper through here because they're going this way versus up here I was going up and down. So I will color that in now. And if you want to keep going darker, oops, a little too much. A little, there we go. Nice gentle pressure. Ever so gently, and then we can keep going back over it. Okay. Now we can also do it with this. We'll try it with the Q-tip. So I will do this because I'm making tiny little slashes. So I'm barely touching. I'm going to use the clean side and then I'm just going to circle. There we go. So here when we go lighter you can barely tell the difference between the professional blending stick and the Q-tip. So really practice though. So Miss Stubby, let's put this into action. So one of the things I did when I was teaching myself to do art was actually create ribbons. Ribbons usually have a very smooth, shiny texture. They use this blending value scale all over the place. So we are going to take a box here, and we're going to make ribbons. We're going to draw them in all kinds of ways. They don't have to be perfect. In fact, the less perfect they are, the more chances you will get into blending them. We'll do it that way. There. We're going to move this like this so you guys can see it a little bit better. There we go. Alright. Now, we're just going to pick a ribbon. We're going to pick this ribbon right here because it's underneath another ribbon, so this will give us a chance to practice shadow work on top of our blending practices. So remember to go light. Since this is kind of round, this section right here is going to be the lightest. So we're not going to put any pencil marks right there. This is starting to go down a bit, so we can put a little bit here. Very, 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 very gently. Work on those light pressures. There you go. And put a little bit here. I guess it should be a shadowy there. And it looks like it's going back up. Just this way. Very, 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 very light. Oh goodness, grumpy, grumpy boy. Alright, so I like the point on this, so I'm going to use this one this time. And then we're going to go with the flow. Point it, hold up. I'm going to go with the flow of the ribbon. Pretty light, right? It's like, I'm getting there. So now we're going to do this side. Very nice and light. And that's above that one, so it's going to be a lot lighter because we really want to emphasize that 3D effect. Move this a little bit. There we go. Remember, this does not have to be perfect. It's old. You're just practicing. Okay? And already we're starting to see some of that 3D effect. So we go back to the bottom one and we start adding a little more shadow work. You can tell that this is just for fun because my ribbons don't match up in size. But that's okay. We're practicing. And nothing is perfect. That back through. And we can blend with little circles, or we can push it up, like into the area of the shadow, like that. And we can give it a nice little edge if my pencil doesn't want to keep breaking. Let's do this one. Okay, nice and light. Because right here is going to be that shiny spot. So it's going to get the least amount of light. Lighter, 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 lighter. Yeah, we're barely touching the paper. That's what I mean by pressure. Is you're barely touching the paper or you're putting a lot of pressure onto it. and then this. So you do circle and then push up into it. See how it like whoosh, shoots up that way? And this way. So I would do this particular exercise for hours to help me understand my value scales. Remember this technique where we dragged and lift? This is now where I'm kind of playing this to help give it direction into it. Put some direction this way. Alright, so for this, so I did, here's some things that you can work on. You can move your pencil this way, and remember, you can practice it going up, and then down, and from left to right, right to left, bottom to top, top to bottom, and work on that with your tiniest bit. So you want to make these teenier and tinier. Alright, and then you want to maybe do diagonal. Like, I'm really going teeny tiny. See? Super tiny. And that's, the more tiny you do it and the less pressure you put onto it, the more these fine motor skills that we are training for in art kung fu is going to get more refined. And so this messy ribbon exercise that we're doing will get more and more impressive. Alright. Now let's say you are a very handed person. So here's your tip for the day. Heavy-handed people. You notice we have a lot of graphite all over this page. Now if you have a very heavy hand and you're really trying to draw light, get your tool here. Alright, notice how nice and dark it is? Right? This is what you're going to start drawing with. So maybe you want to try to draw an eye. Okay. There's an eye here. Yep. And you just want to kind of like draw things out like that. Or do some light shadow work. Okay, this comes in handy because if you need to, I'll even use my big old green. You can really erase much easier. So practice these things. Take your time out, practice the kung fu for art, do these kung fu drills for artists. This is gonna be a thing. And then once you do it, you get really in there and you build up all of that. Then you can use it to draw. Alright? And you can really then be able to do those lighter shade values and stuff like that. Or if you really want to practice, like, oh, maybe here, we'll go back to the ribbons, there's some shadow work here. And maybe there's some shadow here. And you can see where maybe your next value scale is. And if you're like, I don't like it that way, maybe this should be the more whiter spot, the glare part of the ribbon. So we move that around. Okay? So this is a great way to develop your muscles and also practice using your blending sticks to help you draw. So when you get to the point of drawing very realistic faces, you'll be able to draw this guy. Right? So everything that I have showed you so far, okay, from the first lesson to the blending lesson here, everything I did with 2 pencils and a blending stick to create this photo. So there's a lot you can work with on this. So you might notice here with the hair, what I basically did was take a pencil eraser. We'll say I did some shadow work here, and I just erased it to help give him that nice silver hair. Okay? And you can practice that on all of these practice things that you do. This is the whole point of this series, is to give you a drill to do. It gives you opportunity to express and try out new things and really practice and hone some basic skills. So when you start going back to day 1 where we were doing our little buddy here, right? You remember him? Kid drawing number 1. You start taking those shapes. You start taking basic value skills and pencil markings, and pretty soon you start developing them, and then you go explore it into the final frontier, and and then Spock says that's quite logical. I'm a huge Star Trek fan, I'm not gonna lie. I love space stuff. Star Trek and Doctor Who are my thing. But, so, again, I'm gonna end this video here. If you're trying to get to this point where you're drawing like this, practicing this and these techniques here are what's going to give you this, okay? So, but in order to be able to do this, you need to start training your hands and your arms and your body to be able to do all this basic stuff so you can get to this, okay? And it takes time. It takes a lot of time. So do not be frustrated with yourself. I spent hours. Like, I have a huge chunk of paper here, and I would fill these up in a night constantly. Like, I would just do, remember the whip outs where we go up, whip out, whip out, whip out, whip out, whip out. I would do this for hours. This, that. For hours. In order to train my hand. So, say another thing I like to do is just write the alphabet. And just funky lettering. And then I was like, oh, well, this B looks really cool. Can I try to mimic it? And I would just keep doing that over and over and over again. And soon it would teach me really cool things. So, like, I really like that letter E. I really like the F. You know, the G's kind of, C, D, wah. And I would just keep practicing until I can mimic the letter that I was doing. And it's still training your hands to do these basic skills that you're going to need to do really good art. So, in the next lesson, we are going to take some basic shapes and we're going to start putting these two things together so we can actually start drawing. And then what I am planning on doing is checking out other techniques. So we'll do hatching and then cross hatching, circles like we did a little bit here, and do some other ones because I need to practice. And if I could sit there and show you some kung fu like that, some artist kung fu, then we're all going to be better artists for it. So, you stay awesome, practice daily, and I will see you soon. Peace!